Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're looking at the Scimitar class Romulan starship. So, this is a huge warbird that was created by the Romulan Riemann Alliance. The Riemanns really being considered as a subclass, kind of a disposable class citizen of the Romulan Empire. Uh, I don't have anything in any of my books here offhand, although we do have a write up down below. So we will kind of fast forward down to that and we will kind of go through what we have here on Wikipedia, or not Wikipedia, D6 Holocron. Okay, so produced by the Remans, the Scimitar was first encountered by the USS Enterprise E, which traveled to Romulus in 2378 at the invite of the new praetor Shinzan. The ship was a large vessel, nearly the size of the Dietrichs in terms of volume, and was classified by Captain Picard as a predator. Uh, and this is certainly an accurate description. The ship carries very heavy armament and shielding, enabling it to remain in battle for prolonged periods under heavy fire. Like most Romulan ships, the Scimitar is fitted with a cloaking device, but this is of a new type which is undetectable to the current generation of Federation sensor systems. There is no detectable tachyon emissions or residual antiprotons from the cloak, making accurate targeting impossible. Still worse is the fact that the Scimitar could fire all weapons while cloaked. Much of the Klingon prototype bird of prey, which Captain Kirk faced so many years ago in the Kidam Accords back in 2296, when Shinzan attempted to invade the Federation, Captain Picard took the Enterprise E into battle with the Scimitar. The results were shocking. Whereas General Kang's ship was unshielded and lost its cloak when the Enterprise A scored a single hit, the Scimitar retained its cloak and was undamaged throughout numerous weapon impacts. The difficulty in scoring hits on the ship made an already lopsided battle a hopeless affair for the Enterprise. Although two Veldor type warbirds joined the Enterprise in battle, the Scimitar was easily able to defeat these ships in a matter of minutes before turning the attention back onto the Enterprise. Mostly because of Shinzan's previous experience with the Velours, Captain Picard did give a good account of his ship, fighting until all weapons were exhausted before ramming the Scimitar rather than surrendering. The Enterprise's hull did appear to be rather stronger than the Scimitar's, yet although the impact did inflict considerable damage on the Riemann ship, as I move this up here, even this did not stop it. Only a last desperate boarding action by Picard and Lieutenant Commander Data was able to stop stop the enemy vessel. Perhaps most worrying of all, the Scimitar was designed to house a Thaleron radiation emitter system which could engulf ships or even whole planets. As a weapon of mass destruction, the Scimitar would be horrendously effective, able to exterminate planetary populations with ease. The Romulans seemed unlikely to produce or proceed with a class of production of the Scimitar as the design standards. The employment of the Thaleron system would likely provoke a quadrant wide armament race of horrific scale and scope. However, the Romulans did finish an incomplete hull found on the Riemann starbase the Scimitar was produced at. The ship was a modified design with only conventional weaponry, with planetary disruptor banks installed where the Thaleron weapons were. The ship was taken over by Tal Shiar and subsequently defeated by the Plagueis B, Yorktown E, and three Romulan vessels. No further ships are known to be building. However, rumor has it that the Tal Shiar were building two. Should this provide or prove to be the case, the Romulan military as well as Starfleet have much thinking to do. So this comes from Memory Alpha and Memory Beta, um, like hand in hand. Like a lot of the stuff that the D6 Holocron have been getting all their information from. So uh, I remember the movie. I don't remember them coming up with saying that they were making other ships, but it is what it is. And as we kind of go through our stats here for the ship, I mean, we're looking at a really large ship. So this is a warship, capital scale. It is 890 meters long, 1,350 meters wide. This is a size 12 starship. Now, capital starship piloting is the required skill, and it has an autopilot of 3D plus 2. Not as robust as some of these other ships that we have seen in the past, but remember our 2D is our standard. So for the computer to actually do the piloting and everything else that we are so accustomed in the later series of Star Trek, you can talk to the computer and the computer can do almost anything for you. It is pretty remarkable. Has a crew of 1,850. Can run with a skeleton crew of 185 with a plus 10 to their abilities. So it means it's not very easy to do. Yes, you can do it, but you're kind of stretching yourself to do pretty much whatever you're trying to get done. We can have 800 passengers, so standard logic for Romulans and all that. You're looking at troops on here. Maybe it's 700 troops, and we have an extra 100 bays available for something else. However you want to say it. We do have cargo capacity of 400,000 metric tons. So obviously we can, for if they wanted to use it for humanitarian efforts, or if you're using a lot of that for your consumables or whatever the case may be, we do have a lot of cargo space available. We do have enough consumables on board for 3 years, which I'm going to say is a lot of what's being used in the cargo bays. Uh, the warp drive are, we can do a warp 6, a 9.2 sustainable, and a 9.7 for 12 hours. So bringing it into our kind of multi-universe system that I've been kind of trying to do a little bit here. If I was going to bring this into Star Wars, I would give it an 8x backup and a 1x primary. Like I said, I'd like to keep everything roughly on par with each other. Going back and forth between warp drive and hyperdrive and everything else, I'm just using it as a number just to say we're going from here to there. You could still call it a warp drive and say it's going this fast. Either way, um, there's a lot of people that'll say, well, warp doesn't go as fast as hyperdrive, but once you get to 10, then you can be anywhere and everywhere. You know, I don't really like the you can hit anywhere and everywhere at one time. You, to have something that can instantly pop up once in a while is great for an enemy vessel. It should never be achieved for the good guys. There should always be a struggle there. Um, so to sit here and say, how fast should things go? I just want to keep things on a level playing field here. Um, I love all these different franchises. So, like I said, I just want to keep everything on a level playing field, whatever system you're using. If I was going to bring Star Wars into Star Trek, I would give it a warp equivalent of something. So you get the understanding here. Because if that's the core system I'm using, I want the other one to match in so it runs okay. All right, so we do have a nav computer, which does make all the sense in the world. And we have a maneuverability of 1D plus 1. So, one of the things that D6 Holocron has been doing is they have not been giving really high maneuverabilities for all these ships. Now, granted, these are capital class ships. They probably shouldn't have all the high maneuverability that we would give a small starfighter, and I will grant that. So, um, this stays right on par with everything else that they have been doing. So again, I know that there's a couple things I've been thinking of trying to do, and if I get a couple ships built and put in, I will try to stay fairly true to form with what D6 Holocron has been doing because they have a very good layout and a nice flair of everything. Um, Unlike how I kind of butcher my little stats, and it is very rough and crude. So we have a space of a 9.5, and it has a hull of 9D, which I think really does represent what it should be. And in our reading here, with what they had written, when the Enterprise had kind of rammed right into the Riemann ship, I will say that one of the things that has to be taken into account is the fact that this is after it has already sustained how much other damage. So when you're now ramming your ship into it, there's a you're talking about you're hitting another ship that has already kind of taken significant damage along the way. We don't fully understand how much damage that is. And the other thing is, I think, if I remember correctly, not only did they do that, but they had also set off explosions on the inside. So, that being what it is. Okay, so we have primary shields of 4D and secondary shields of 4D. So, uh, highly shielded uh, with a big fleet fleet ship, I guess I would say. I mean, this is really where your high command is going to be. If you're in a battle, this would be the center of your battle command. Today, this would be our aircraft carrier. This was World War II. Well, I guess World War II, we were starting to use the aircraft carrier as our flagship for a battle fleet. But definitely World War One, this would be our battleship, not our aircraft carrier, because different tactics. So, looking at a sensor packet, passively it can scan out to 3.5 kilometers with a +2. We can do an active scan out to 10 kilometers with a 2D +2 bonus. We have a search for 14 kilometers at a plus 3D +2 to our roll, and a focus out to 500 meters with an additional 4D +1 to our roll. These are very significant. This is a very big sensor packet, um, allowing us to do a lot of potentially good scientific missions, or for the Romulans and the Remans for this part to really be able to track and attack ships. Uh, so when we look at it in those regards, this is why we're able to shoot multiple rounds, and why I would say the way the weapons are set up in Star Trek. Um, if you're shooting all these rounds, unlike in Star Wars, if we're bringing it in, uh, you can fire this many rounds without hitting a negative. Okay, we can always shoot multiple rounds in the Star Wars role playing game, but every time we do, we hit a negative penalty to it. Okay, and it takes into account, like, you would have a recoil on a rifle, the barrel unaligns itself if we're shooting by hand, and now we have to try and get back onto target. Same thing with some of the ship weapons. Are they going to be slightly jostled from shooting and then right back on target? Um, it's those ideas. Now, whether that's actually a physical thing or not, because these are laser weapons, does that really happen with laser weapons? Probably not. But things are also in movement too. I mean, we're not just sitting there, firing at a wall. We're shooting at something else that's moving, and we ourselves are most likely moving. So it adds to that. Okay, so our weapons planetary disruptor cannon only has the one from the looks of it, requires the crew of one, fire control is 2D. It has either a standard or a pulse fire mode, shoots one round or one shot per round, and it does 12D damage. So this is very significant. Um, I think even Star Destroyers would be kind of nervous with something like this. Now we have 52 type Urugal disruptor cannons. We have 20 in the front, 13 port, 13 starboard, 6 aft. It starts looking like a Star Destroyer at this point. It says, do you want weapons? Yes. Well, what ones? All of them. So we have quite significant fire here. Um, Again, we have a fire control of 2D. They have a fire rate of 5. So we can have 5 shots per cannon per round at a damage of 40 plus 2 at capital scale. It's not a lot of damage at one time, but the fact that you have just forward facing, we have 20 cannons shooting 5 times around each at 40 plus 2. So that'll start really whittling things down. We also have 27 Type G, would it be 2 Singularity torpedo launchers, 10 forward, 7 aft, 5 port, 5 starboard, but they're all self guided. So that means that really, technically, you could shoot all of them and they will turn around and attack whatever target you're aiming at. Now, we have a spread of 10, so technically, we could have 270 Singularity torpedoes, or, well, 270 torpedoes coming out at one time, all aiming at whoever is at the unfortunate uh, spot to be aimed at. All right, and these are doing 8D damage. So this would be like our concussion missile launchers. Our proton torpedo launchers are 9D out of Star Wars. So either way, but you're still talking about 270 of these little buggers just coming straight at you, saying, "Hello, it's AT&T. Would you like to take this call?" It's just a devastating thing. Um, we have 3 Delta class tractor beams, 2 in the front, 1 in the aft. Let's see, fire control is 2D. The strength of these are 4D plus 2. We also have a class Alpha tractor beam for the shuttle bay. This is going to be at a starfighter scale. Fire control is 1D plus 1. Strength is 3D. All right, so one of the nice things that they've always done really well here on D6 Holocron is we break it down to crew quarters. We have 200 Spartan crew quarters. We have 1,000 basic crew quarters, 300 expanded, and 85 luxury crew quarters. When we look at it in these regards, where do you really want to see, like the Spartan? Is that going to be where essentially we have 200 crew members that are sleeping in like a hallway kind of setup where they're in bunks or whatever? Or are we giving them a little bit better? That I would say that's all up to whoever's running the campaign or the group at large to say, how does our ship want to look? So I will always leave that up to your imagination of what you think that should look like. But I would say Spartan would probably be like your hallway. The basic might be like 2 or 4 people in a room. Expanded might be maybe down to 2, and our luxury is going to be like a single occupancy. Uh, and we'll go from there. All right. So we have 220 escape pods that can carry 8 personnel in each pod. This was commissioned in the late 24th century due to Earth reckoning. Transporters, we have 8 personnel transporters, which can have which have 6 pads for 6 beams on each transporter. We have 8 emergency transporters, which can carry up to 24 beans, and 8 cargo transporters, which can carry 400 kilograms per transporter movement. For a complement of fighters in that, we have Scorpion class fighters. It can carry 50 of those, and it can carry 100 probes. And then here's our write up that we read earlier. So, this is a beast of a ship. Now, for all those that want to say which one would win if you have Star Wars or Star Trek, the way D6 Holocron has been laying this out, and I agree with a lot of what they've been doing. Um, I'm not going to say one is going to be better than the other. Okay, I will say that ship by ship basis, you have a good fight on your hands, and it could all determine on what the day is. Sometimes I think you're going to get Starfleet vessels that will dominate, and other times you're going to get a vessel like this that, honestly, because you can shoot off 270 torpedoes at one time, I think in scenarios like that, I think you could really mess up a lot of Star Destroyers. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is you only have so many torpedoes on board. Now, this does have a huge complement. What was it? We have torpedoes, 1,350. But if you're shooting about 270, even if we just cut it down to 250 to just be, you know, that means you're only going to manage to pull that off, what, 5 times? Six, six as an extra, but, you know, how many torpedoes do you want to launch out there? And suddenly now, yeah, you've just wasted a bunch of them, but once you're out of torpedoes, then you're relying on your other weapons. Now, I will grant you the fact that we do have um, phaser or disruptor weapons that can shoot multiple rounds at a time, and those do get pretty significant because you can whittle shields and armor and all that stuff down. But um, in the long run, who will or will not? Um, and the doctrines are different, and those things have to be said as well. Because typically, when you're looking at Star Wars compared to Star Trek, I mean, it's all looks at science fiction, space, military battles. But quite often, because Star Trek is an exploratory view for the most part, once we get into wartime, Star Trek really has to really change its way of doing things. And I think we do see that quite a bit in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But in Star Wars, most of the time, we're not running around with a single Star Destroyer. You're going in with a fleet. And, when we look in the West End game books and all that stuff, you're going to have maybe 3 Star Destroyers, but you're also going to have a huge fleet around it. So you're going to have other battleships and other support vessels and a picket fleet, and as well as all the starfighters out there. It's not just one ship on one ship most of the time, and that's where things are different. So um, those debates can always go on by people that want to say that their side is better than the other. For those of us that love all these different franchises, I just love the fact that like what I'm doing here, and D6 Holocron has put it into the D6 universe. But I would love to be able to see a Star Trek vessel brought into Star Wars, as well as you know, let's have fun and bring in all the ships that we see from uh, Firefly. Um, if you like Battlestar Galactica, bring that in too. Bring them all in and just have one heck of a fun galaxy. That's what I'm all for. Uh, and I hope you guys see that. So, with that, thanks for visiting. I know I've kind of gone a little off topic here a little bit, but thanks for listening to it. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We'll see you in the next video.